It's Tuesday, and welcome to the Falcon Focus podcast. We are live on Facebook Live. We're live from the Concordia Cafeteria from now until 10:15 this morning, and live on Facebook Live, archived on cuwfalcons.com. You can download the audio thanks to Podbean and listen on iTunes. My name is Matt Menzl, and on this week's edition, we talk women's lacrosse. Emily Schoessow, the head coach, the only head coach in program history, will join us. They get ready to begin their 9th season of play. But first, we talk men's and women's track and field. The outdoor season is winding down and being joined by junior Sam Spranger, who this past weekend was part of a men's track and field team that finished in third place at the NAC Indoor Championships. That was hosted by Carthage. The women, they finished in fourth. And Sam, first of all, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Your thoughts on the way things played out this past weekend?
I think everyone did great this weekend. The guys really stepped it up. I know a couple of them, it was their first NAC championship, so it was really great to see them get out there and win their first medal. And there was a bunch of posts online saying they won their first medal. It was really exciting to see that for especially our 4x4 who finished second. Some of those guys never won a NAC medal before, and it was just great to see some of those guys perform and earn that medal.
I know right now the focus is on now, but when you look at who did what this past week, and it seemed like there were a lot of freshmen and sophomores that performed extremely well. It looks like the future, at least on paper, is extremely bright for the track and field program.
Yeah, talking a little bit about that. Last year we had a big senior class, and we still finished third. So one of my teammates, Emmett, he brought it up to me. He was like, "We finished third last year, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "We finished third this year." And he goes, "That's impressive with all these freshmen." And it's just showing what we like to do in practice is show by example and really, teach those freshmen how to, keep it up. And so that's what we did during practice, and they've really shown out this last end of this year.
Has that made for some very competitive practices?
Yes, it has. A lot of our practices are very competitive. We like to, even if they're a little tired, a little sore, we like to keep them going. I like to cheer them on right after I'm done. I keep my eyes on them and treat them as my own.
How about for you individually this past weekend? You finished second in the 400-meter dash at 49.62 seconds. You also finished second in the 200-meter dash at 22.72 seconds. Third fastest time in school history. Part of the 4x400 team that finished in second as well. Thoughts on your performances?
I thought I did well. I was trying a little something different in the 400. So in the beginning, I went out a little faster than usual. I ran a 22 split, which isn't that great, but I usually come out slow and usually get boxed in, so I went out a little faster this time.
You bring me up to my next question. How do you approach these sprint events? And I know the 200, 400, there's the 200 meters that are of difference, but is there a different approach to each event?
There is. So especially with indoor. The 400 indoor, you have to really get out fast because you have that cutoff in the first 100, and that's where it can make or break your race. You can get cut off because you're going in from lane 6 to lane 1 and then running around the track. With the 200, it's nice because you have your own lane, so you can run around in whatever lane is possible. So I ran around in lane 6, but in the 200, you just have to go all out.
Now, you broke earlier this season the school record, your own school record in the 400-meter dash. That was at the Grand Valley State University Bob Eubanks Invite, a time of 49.32 seconds. Was that the goal coming into the year, was to break your own record, and how were you able to accomplish that feat?
I guess the goal coming into the year is always just better myself and help my team to better themselves. But I guess going into that meet, it was trying to break the record because it was a big track. It was a 300 track, and I know we only had one opportunity to actually go to a 300 track, so I had to take that to my advantage.
In that event, you faced a number of competitors at the Division I, Division II, Division III ranks, NAIA from Canada. Does that make a difference, the competition? Do you think about the competition? Does that push you a little bit harder knowing that you're facing some of those athletes that are maybe at the D1, D2 level?
Yeah, you really think about it. You don't really think about it as much as I should say. You just think about, okay, these guys are D1, they got recruited, they're D2, they got recruited, so they're getting scholarships to do this stuff, and you're over here at Concordia, Division III, so you don't get scholarships. But it's nice to go against great competition. I know a couple of my teammates were a little scared, but I told them, this is where it's going to better yourself.
How about from a venue standpoint? I know, a track is a track, but, you go to various venues, various gyms, and, sometimes they're tighter quarters.
Mm-hmm.
The walls are closer, the fans are closer, sometimes more spread out. Does that play a factor at all? Do you have to get used to your surroundings a little bit? Does that play into your preparation?
Yeah, it really does. So for Grand Valley, it was a 300 track, so it was nice and big. and that was a new experience for a lot of us. And it was super nice to run around because you got to start in a different position for the 400 or the 200, and so it was nice. But going like to the NAC Conference Championship was like at Carthage, so that's really tight. Like in lane 6, you're probably 2 feet away from the wall. So it's just one of those things where you have to watch out for people and stuff like that because they'll cross and they might get in your way. So your only choice is either to stop and ruin your race or run them over.
How does practicing inside the John Book Fieldhouse help or maybe hinder in preparation for some of these events? Obviously, you got a lot of space inside the John Book Fieldhouse.
There's a little bit of hindrance, I would say, just with the corners, but otherwise the straightaways are great. The corners really prepare us for like meets like Carthage because it is, I think, is a very tight track. So that will prepare us. The Fieldhouse prepares us for that.
So do you have a favorite venue that you compete in or one that you prefer? Do you enjoy the tighter quarters? Do you like more space?
I like more space. I'm more of an outdoor kind of guy, so my favorite is Grand Valley now.
Okay. And rightfully so after the kind of performance you had earlier this season. So now you entered the indoor season fresh off what was a great outdoor season last year in which you ended up qualifying for the NCAA Division III National Championship, that in Lacrosse, Wisconsin, then on the 400-meter dash. Ran a school record in that event at the NAC Championships. What was it like for you to qualify for nationals? Take us through that experience, that weekend of lacrosse.
It was a lot of emotions. So I not only wanted to do it, I told my athletic trainer Dan Sabin before the season. I said it was his last last year, so I'm gonna get him there. And so that was one of my goals, and I always wanted to get Sam there too. So I wasn't really doing it all for me. I was doing it for my family too. And it was just like a bunch of mixed emotions, just barely making it, but it was still, you made it. And leading up to that 400, it was really cool because you didn't warm up on the track. You had a separate day that you would go and warm up and practice. But then when it came to meet day, when you ran your event, you would go in the inside of their cross building. So you go on their indoor track, warm up, they would sit you down, then they would walk you out all along the side of the track, all the way around, and you'd sit in a venue. They get your stuff ready, take all your stuff down, and then you jog down the track. They'd have cones set up for you. You'd go right in there. The whole crowd was watching. Cameras were everywhere. It's pretty intense.
Big stadium atmosphere. and you and I were talking off air before we started. Weather was a story that weekend. Maybe not so much for your event, but temperature-wise, we're talking 90s plus those 3 days. At times they had storms, they had weather delays during the 3-day event. Did weather affect you at all, and does weather affect you during the outdoor season? How do you have to, adapt to that?
Oh, of course, always. So the weather was a big factor, and it always is. Some of the meets like we had last year, like at Carroll, it was super cold. It was 35 degrees. And we ran out there, so that was one of them. But at Nationals, it was 92, and some of my other friends from other teams were out there a little longer, and it really just drains your energy. You just had to watch out from being outside and all that kind of stuff.
Overall, you're a junior, as mentioned, listed as junior. Have you been pleased with the progress you've been making over your 3+ seasons now with the indoor-outdoor program?
I have. My freshman year, I was a little, disappointed. I only dropped 0.1, but then I realized it's all part of the process, and so I just kept with it, and I've dropped more and more and more. So I've been sticking to that steady number drop.
Now, your freshman year, you also competed in the high jump, and your focus has been mainly right now on the track. Could you potentially go back that route, back in the field, back with the high jump at some point, or is your focus right now on sprints?
I could actually go back and do high jump. It's just a little thing, just getting back into it. I'm a little rusty, but at practice we were practicing, so I was actually going to do 200, 400, 4x4, and high jump at conference, but we did it the week before at Oshkosh, and I decided not to. So I cleared 6 foot at practice, but I just decided not to do it anymore.
Yeah, your freshman year, your season high was 1.80 meters indoors. What is the strategy to high jump?
It's a lot of mental and a lot of just really form. It's a lot of form. You have to have your steps down. You have to have you have to be flexible. And that's the thing I'm really not, but you just got to work with it and you got to be able to jump, I guess.
So let's say you're still involved in the high jump. How hectic are some of those events? I know that they're spaced out nicely, but it's still, you're mentally preparing for one thing, then quickly, once that event's over, you're mentally preparing for the next.
Yeah, it's very hard. So Oshkosh the week before, I was just doing the 200 and high jump, and I was already stressed out just because of high jump, because in high jump you get to go whenever they call you. But in the 200, you have a set heat and you can go. And so it's easier to mentally prepare for a 200 rather than going from high jump to the 200. I have no idea how I did all 4 of those events in high school, but
it seems like the 400-meter dash throw is your event.
Yes.
You look here at Concordia, you're the record holder indoor, outdoor. Going back to your high school days, St. Mary's Springs, you're the record holder in that event as well. How did you first get involved in track and field?
So actually, when I was younger, my dad was always a runner, and I ran, I think, 3 miles when I was 8, and we would just always run. When I was little, he would tell me what to run to, so I'd be like, can I run to that tree? And he'd be like, yeah, run to the tree and back, and I'd just run. And so then he got me involved in a running club, and I've been in the running club ever since. I still go back once in a while in the summer, and then that just really got me into track. And I was actually a miler before any of this sprinting stuff. So in 6th grade, I ran a 5:07 mile. And then I was like, got to high school and I was like, that's too long for me. So I dropped down to the 400 and 200.
But 3 miles at the age of 8?
Yeah.
Holy cow. And you talk about, running some of those longer distances. So what made sprint like your go-to now? Like, why going from running miles to sprint events?
I guess when I was running the miles, it was a lot more your laps have to be perfect every lap, and you had to look at your time. And my dad was always, yelling at me from the stands, like, this is your split and stuff like that. But I like more of an intense, where you're trying to sprint all out as fast as you can go, 1 lap, give it your all, kind of thing.
So what's your favorite part about track and field?
Actually, the team aspect. You really don't think about track and field as a team aspect, but when it comes down to it, it's not a lot like other teams where you can have other people to pick you up when you go down in a race. So when it comes to conference, you have to perform. If you don't perform, then you don't get the points. So it's really nice, fun to see your teammates improve that much more and get those points for you and your team.
In high school, you also played football. St. Mary's Springs, a tradition-filled program. You won a couple of state championships. What makes that program, it seems like annually, so dominant and a team that's always competing for a state title?
A lot of tradition. We like to stick to our tradition. We like to keep everything simple. We stand by a saying called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So that's what we do. We just listen to our coach. He yells a lot, but he only yells because he cares about you.
So words we can all live by, KISS. Got to ask you, though, about St. Mary's Springs. Is there pressure, though? Because you're running back, linebacker, all-conference performer. Is there pressure on that program, it sounds like, annually to continue to carry on that tradition?
Always. Now that we're the leading state championship, we have the most state championships in all high school state history. There is a lot of pressure, and it's just something that gets brought to the table each year, every year. I get a little worried, but my coach, Bob Hyland, doesn't, and he just keeps on going.
Bringing it back to Concordia, this upcoming weekend, you have an opportunity to qualify for nationals in Boston. Take us through this weekend, what that entails, and what you need to do to get to Boston in a couple of weeks.
Well, I need to run. I looked today. I'm 22nd right now. Comfortable spot would be 10th, and that's at 49.01. So I have to drop 0.6, which is a lot, but I think I'm capable of doing it. I ran the 400 a little different this last weekend, but that was just to test things out, so I think I should be able to do it this weekend.
And finally, okay, you go from indoor to outdoor. There may be a break, there may not be a break. What are your goals for the outdoor season?
My goals for the outdoor season is try to run a nice low 47 this year. Hopefully a 47.2, and just leave it at that. And hopefully in the 200, break the 200 record as well.
All right, Sam, thanks a lot for your time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
That's Sam Spranger of the men's indoor and outdoor track and field teams. When we come back, we'll talk women's lacrosse with head coach Emily Schoessow. This is the Falcon Focus podcast.
If you could make one wish, any wish, what would it be? Would you wish for more money, a better career, fame? Or would you use your wish to make a difference in someone else's life? At Concordia University, we believe God intended us to live for something bigger than ourselves. To live boldly, faithfully, and with online programs at Concordia University, we're here to help you do that. Live uncommon.
And welcome back to the Falcon Focus podcast. We're live until 10:15, live on Facebook Live here on this Tuesday. We are archived on CWFalcons.com. download the audio thanks to Podbean, listen through iTunes. And again, we're here every Tuesday live inside the Concordia cafeteria. And, the spring seasons are quickly creeping up on us, and before you know it, a number of home events here on the Mequon campus. And now turn our attention to women's lacrosse. Emily Schoessow, the only coach in program history kind enough to join us as women's lacrosse gets ready to begin season number 9. And the season opener, the conference opener against the Beloit Buccaneers coming up on the 6th of March. Coach, thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Can't believe it's been 9 seasons already. It seems
Me
like
either.
Yesterday, match number 1, the first home match, everybody learning the sport of women's lacrosse. But before we look at what's to come, let's look back at last year. Last year, the team 10-7, 9-2 in the conference, lost in a conference semifinal in the tournament against Augsburg. How would you go about when you look back at last season? How would you summarize last season?
I think it was a strong season for us. We had some really strong seniors that were helping carry the team and just were determined to have a strong season and do well. And their goal was to win conference. Obviously, we fell a little bit short of that. But we lost by 1 point in our semifinal game to a team that I think went on to lose by 1 point in their final game in the championship game. So I think it shows that we're all still pretty close there at the top of the conference. And we worked really hard last year. We had to work hard to get where we were. And I think we're proud of what we did, and we're looking to move forward and hopefully shoot for conference again this year.
The way the schedule kind of played out, is it tough? Okay, you played Augsburg to wrap up the regular season, then you get them right away in the tournament.
Yeah.
Is that kind of tough because you just saw them 1 week before, and now you're trying to come up with a new strategy to beat them a second time?
Right. Well, yeah, we knew that they were going to be a tough one to beat, and that they've been one of the stronger teams in the conference for the last few years. And I was nervous playing them back to back, and I actually was thinking that we probably couldn't beat them twice. So when we lost the first time, I was like, all right, well, we'll get them next week. Yep. So we thought that was going to happen. We were pretty close there, but didn't end up coming true in the end.
You mentioned the senior class, and you had 4 listed seniors on the roster, including Caitlin Henry, Allison Couric. Those two, their name all over the program record book. What do they mean to the success of this program?
So much. Both strong players from their freshman year, but continue to develop throughout the 4 years that they were here. And I think that that's really what we were looking for out of them as we brought them in. We knew that they were both talented, but we knew that they both had a lot of room to grow. And they continued to do that year after year after year and just became really strong players by their senior year, top players in the conference, and just had outstanding seasons. And that's what you want. You want them to continue to grow and have their best season their senior year. So I think that they both did that for us. And they've done a lot for the program and our success.
So going into the off season, what was the focus for this program? When you look at areas of improvement or what needed to improve, what was the focus?
Well, it was going to be who's going to step up and take that leadership role. I think that was the biggest thing for us. And Lauren did it a lot last year. She was one of our captains last year too, and we knew that she could fill that spot. So we were just looking at who's going to help her in that role and how are we going to move forward without some of those key leaders that we had. So that's kind of been our focus, the team building aspect and the leadership development at this point.
When you talk about team building and you look at the roster, and it does appear to be a number of new faces from that of last year. So how has practice been looking to this point?
It's looking really great. We were nervous about that as far as having so many new people that it might take a little bit longer for everyone to kind of get in sync. But it's been looking really strong since the beginning. We're really excited about who we have, and everyone's been working really hard. So we're pretty excited about it.
We'll talk more about this as we go along because I do want to bring up, the history of the program and where it was and where it is now. But are you finally getting past that point where you have athletes that have played lacrosse versus, I'm sure you still have a couple here and there, but it seemed like at the beginning you had a number of athletes to fill, spots that never played the sport before.
Right.
Have you gotten past that now, or is it still sometimes kind of that learning curve?
We're still kind of there. We've had a couple years now where we've lost a few players here and there that we weren't expecting to lose for various reasons, and so we're still kind of filling in here and there. But the kids that we do have that are coming in are strong athletes. They're ready to learn. They're working hard. Many of them have experience. We have a senior basketball player, Ashley Solberg, who played lacrosse in high school. So she was actually one of Lauren Paquin's teammates in high school. So she was a very strong lacrosse player. We were actually trying to recruit her for lacrosse. She came here, played tennis and basketball. This year she's going to play lacrosse. So we're really excited to finally have her on our roster. And she just came out to practice for the first time on Sunday right after their basketball loss. And she's looking really strong. So we're excited to have her and some of the other girls that have joined us as well.
At least on paper, as far as experience goes, it seems like, when you look at the defense, the defenders that are back, that's where the strength may lie. You have Kristen Kennedy, Jenny Rodenga, Ellie Woodman are all back. Is it fair to say the defense, at least at the beginning, could be the strength of this team?
I think so, for sure. Yeah, we've got strong defenders who are all leaders back there on the field. They'll help our freshman defenders kind of fill into those spots. And then we've got 2 strong options in the net as well, which it's been a long time since we've had 2 options back there. Both of the goalies that we had come in are strong, committed players, and they both show kind of different looks. So we'll have to play year by year, week by week.
I was going to ask you about the goalkeeping battle and what has that been like so far in practice. And okay, let's say you have 2 that they bring different skill sets. You can go to one way or the other. How will you determine, okay, from one match to the next, which direction you're going to go?
I think it's just going to be, week to week, seeing who gives us the best look that week in practice, who's looking strong. We've kind of had some injuries here and there with the 2 of them where, one week one's out, the next week the other one's out. So we haven't had both consistently at practice yet, but we'll see what that looks like this week, and we'll have to just see game by game.
No question the attack centers around Lauren Paquin, and she comes in with 151 career goals, 46 assists, the reigning co-midfielder of the year last year in the Midwest Women's Lacrosse Conference. Mm-hmm. What are your expectations for a player like Lauren?
I think for her, it's just going to be playing her game. She needs to make sure that she's just focused on what she wants to do and playing a team game and being a leader out there. She doesn't have to think too much. She has to play the game and not get in her own head. But I think she does a really good job of that, and I think she'll be great.
I want to now talk a little bit about the history of the programs. We look back at the last 8 seasons or so, and let's start with recruiting. Mm-hmm. Does it get easier now? I mean, it's never easy, but does it get easier now that you have something, versus day one, you have something to show potential recruits that, hey, look at where we are, look at what we did,
right,
versus at the beginning where you really are just kind of selling what could be?
Yeah, so it's changed actually throughout the years. At first it was, we were one of the few programs in the area, so we didn't have much to show, but there weren't many options either. So there was that aspect of it, and then as we grew and had some success, it was easy to say, this is what we've done. We've won conference championships, so that has helped a lot. But now we're getting to the point where lacrosse is growing so much in the Midwest at the collegiate level that there are so many options out there. So now, even though we've had success, we're still kind of fighting to get our name out there and let people know that we are still a good option. There have been Division II programs that have added, NAIA programs that have added, and now there are a ton of Division III programs. So there's a lot of options out there. So it's still a battle getting those recruits. But
have you been pleased with the progress of this program? I mean, you look back at year one, and okay, it was a learning season, 0-12, but then all of a sudden you go from 0-12 to just a few years later, this team is annually competing for not only regular season but also conference tournament championships. Yeah,
it's been really exciting. I'm very happy with where we are right now and where we've been in the last few years. I don't think we've missed a conference playoff for quite a few years now. So it's been great to watch the program grow and to continue building it. And we've had great players every year who have helped in that. We've had a couple key leaders each season who have really been the driving force in our program being successful.
I smile just kind of thinking back to that first year because it was a learning curve for everybody surrounding the women's lacrosse program, trying to figure out what was going on out there, because it is a different sport from men's lacrosse as far as the rules go. But what do you remember? Okay, March 15, 2011, Mount Holyoke, the opponent. What do you remember about the first ever match in Concordia women's lacrosse history?
It was fun. I remember that the players that we had were really excited to get out there and finally play. Only a couple of them had played lacrosse before, so they were excited to see what it was actually like. And then those who had played were excited to get out on the field again. And it was fun to do it. It was cold that first season. I remember that our first home games here were below 10 for sure. So that was a little rough, but it was definitely a fun season. I look back and have great memories of the players that we had and the road trips. We had some pretty long road trips. Field hockey's in a similar situation right now, but the bus trips to Ohio and St. Louis and everywhere we went. So it was a good time.
Well, you kind of touched on this. Women's lacrosse, especially when this program started, was still relatively new to the area. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest challenges to starting a program essentially from the ground up?
It's getting the numbers. It's getting the kids here who want to play for 4 years, who want to be committed to a Division III program in the way that we want them to be committed to it, and understand what that commitment means and how hard they have to work for us to be successful. So it was, not only just getting the numbers here, but getting the right kids here. So there was a couple years there where we had the right number of kids, but we didn't necessarily have the right kids, and kind of working through that process until we finally had, I think, maybe our second or third third, maybe fourth year, we had a strong group of kids who were all the right kids, and that's when we started finding success.
So to date, what is your proudest moment or biggest accomplishment in the first 8 seasons?
I think our first conference championship is definitely it's up there. It's was really exciting for the team that we had. That's what their goal had been since each of them got here. They wanted to win that conference championship, and we were excited the first couple years when we made the playoffs. But when we finally won one, that tops it for me.
Now, your mom was a long-time women's lacrosse head coach at Williams College. When you got the Concordia job, when you first arrived here at Mequon, how much advice did you get from your mom? How many times did you make that phone call going, hey, what am I doing, and how do I go about starting this program?
Every day. I called her every day, asking her advice, asking about drills, different ways I could do things, talking to the players. I still call her. She's been retired for 2 years, and I still call her for advice. I called her 2 days ago about some goalie drills. So she's still somebody that is my go-to.
Is there one or two pieces of advice that she's given you that has always stuck with you? Like, it is some of the best advice, and I keep it with me.
Yeah, it's that you can't change people's attitudes. So you can try to teach them, you can try to build their skills up, but if they've got if they're set on a specific attitude, you're not going to be able to change that, and you're never going to be able to make everybody happy. So you just have to kind of stick to what your plan is and keep moving forward.
So you've been around women's lacrosse pretty much your entire life. Mm-hmm. What are some of your first memories of either watching or playing the sport?
They used to play on grass fields. They had this huge field at Williams College, and I think a couple of their sports teams still play there down at Coalfield. But my mom's team was way in the back by the river, and we would just come to all of her practices and all of her games, and we'd be hanging out on the sidelines. And I don't know how she did it with 4 kids and all of us hanging out at practices and games, but those were some good memories, just kind of watching all those games.
So did you ever envision then that you were going to be a coach one day? Is that kind of, watching your mom coach, did you kind of get the juices flowing a little bit, like I want to get into coaching?
No, it's funny. I actually didn't even consider it at first. It wasn't something that I thought I would do. I always coached camps with her. Once I got to college, I would come back and coach camps with her in the summer, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I guess I don't know why it just never really clicked that was what I wanted to do until the summer after I graduated and was just kind of hanging out, coaching camps, and then it was like, well, what am I going to do? So I started applying to some assistant coaching jobs and got one at Ithaca College and was there for a pretty short time before I came out here. But yeah, just didn't really quite click until it was time to not go back to school, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now?
Well, in college, you played both lacrosse and ice hockey,
yeah.
and I was at Connecticut College.
Mm-hmm.
At Connecticut College, you look, and okay, first of all, what was that like for you, juggling the two sports? Because, again, you got some of that overlapping. And how does that help you now, because you have so many athletes that do the same thing, that are playing multiple sports? You can relate to that, can't you?
I can, yeah. And for me, I needed that. I needed to be in season all the time. Otherwise, I didn't know how to manage my time. So I needed to have that structure of somebody kind of looking over my shoulder and needing to be at practice at a certain time and knowing we were traveling a certain weekend. And I think that some kids operate that way. They need that structure. So for the kids that works for, I really know how to kind of walk them through that and help them through that process.
Does that become difficult at all? Because in some cases, you're waiting for some athletes' sports to wind down here in the winter time. Is it difficult hey, when am I going to have a full roster? When am I going to have certain pieces put in the lineup? Or is it just something that you can kind of pencil in and move forward?
Yeah, it's rough in the first couple of weeks of the season when we just have our strictly lacrosse players there. They've done a great job actually this February of keeping the pace going pretty strong. But obviously we want our winter sport athletes to succeed. We want them to go as far as they can. And having coached ice hockey and been with that program in the past, that was rough for me as well, wanting us to succeed, but also getting excited for our season and waiting for those players to join us again. But they've stepped in. We've got most of them back already. Some of them are still taking some time off, but they've stepped in right away and they're starting to build their lacrosse skills back up and jump back in with the team, so it's been good.
And the season gets underway again March 6th at Beloit against the Buccaneers. And the home opener, this is going to be fun. It's the Falcons against the Falcons coming up on the 9th of March against UW River Falls. Travel to Oregon as well at some point. Thoughts on the schedule and the way it kind of breaks down this year, where it seems like a bulk of the home games will come in April?
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to start the season with our spring break trip and the first couple of games that we have here in March. And obviously we want to push as many of them back to April as we can, because the weather here is not always great in the first couple weeks of the season. So I'm glad that we have a little bit of time